Signs.
Let me know.
You know, I changed that. I know it don't used to be about 4 anymore. Expensive anyway.
You got that right. Nowadays it'd be overkill, wouldn't it?
Oh, no. I can get up there and it won't let me. Yeah, it won't let you go any further. Bye. See you later.
What happened was a guy was turning into a fast restaurant drive, and apparently he didn't see the two cyclists following the sun, and he just took them both out. That was a celebration.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be bad.
They were just crossing the driveway, and they were on the sidewalk.
It's all subliminal messaging.
When I used to race, I would see people on training and they just flew through intersections.
Yeah, I think we've got a quorum now. Welcome to the July 26, 2021 meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Zoning Adjustments. This board is a 5-member board, and it takes 3 affirmative votes of approval for a variance to be approved. For anyone addressing the board today, please give us your name and address for the record, and then tell us what your hardship is, or what your objection to the request may be. You will be given our decision today verbally, and you will receive our decision in writing within 10 days. The zoning approvals can be issued immediately following this hearing in the office at room E200. However, you will first be required to obtain a permit from the Jefferson County Department of Health if your application involves a septic tank, or the Jefferson County Environmental Services Department if your application involves connection to sanitary sewer. Anyone disagreeing with the board's decision today has 15 days in which to file an appeal with the circuit court. Also, we ask that you silence any electronic devices or phones during this hearing. Have all the board had a chance to review our case materials and minutes from the May 24th, 2021 hearing?
Yes.
All approve those minutes?
Yes.
Oh, we'll need a motion.
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay, got a second?
A second.
All in favor? Thank you, Mike. Okay, first case today will be A 21-0014, Cheshire Park LLC, applicant Mary Bynum, request a variance for the terms of the zoning regulations to allow lots 385, 386, 389, 392, 405, and 411 of Cheshire Park subdivision, phase 2F, be a minimum of 15 foot from back of curb in lieu of the minimum 25 foot to allow for the plans to fit on the lot. This is located in Cheshire Park Development in McCollum. Michael, would you like to present this?
Yes, sir. This case involves some lots in an undeveloped section of this subdivision. All of these lots are in and around the bulb of a cul-de-sac. And so that's why the applicant has made the request, because it's difficult to put a particular house plan on those lots as is. In situations like this, in R7 zoning, let's go back. R7 zoning allows for front setbacks to be measured from the back of curb or back of sidewalk. And that front setback is just the 25 feet. And so they have a much shorter setback than normal residential properties do. We've seen some problems, particularly with the traffic engineering department here at the county. Has seen some problems where vehicles are dangling into the right-of-way or dangling into the roadway. In addition to that, there's also a lot of more on-street parking that goes on that creates a traffic hazard or a safety hazard, particularly in these cul-de-sacs where these spaces are also reserved for where the fire truck has to turn around. And so in discussing this case with the county traffic engineer and the county engineer, the request to move the houses closer to the road, there's no real objection to that. In fact, we've got precedent set in this particular subdivision over and over and over again, as you see in your report, where we've adjusted this particular setback, particularly along cul-de-sacs, and there's also some corner lots where we've made that adjustment as well. But again, the county engineer, traffic engineer is comfortable with moving the house structures forward, and in fact, you could see where they could almost be more in line and be more in uniform with the houses that are leading up to it. It could even sort of taper, and there wouldn't be really any sort of visual effect. The only issue is, again, dealing with those vehicles. And so the staff is recommending that, if there is an approval, that we allot that 25-foot space for parking on the property and outside of that right-of-way and outside of where the vehicles would dangle into that right-of-way itself. And that's that on that one. And I've got images of all the lots that they're requesting the setbacks for. And as stated, we've had several variances within this subdivision. And it's stated in your report as well that most of those were developed prior to the interpretation that they be 25 feet from the back of curb. And so when I go back and I measure a lot of these, particularly these ones in these cul-de-sacs, there's only one of those lots that's actually under construction now that's less than 25 feet from that back of curb. The other ones, though they were granted that particular variance, they were built to spec. And as you can see from the picture, if you look over here on Catholic Court, the cul-de-sac above it, you'll see even when there's adjustments that are being made to a lot of these houses to accommodate more parking. If you look at the third house on that second or that first cul-de-sac that's right over here, you'll see where they've done an extension to their driveway. And that's been done since there was a new property owner. It wasn't built like that. Same thing with, there's another house within that particular cul-de-sac where, again, looking back at the Google Earth images and comparing our old aerial photography, where they've actually expanded or made their driveway wider, again, to accommodate that. And so, again, there's just that apprehension and scared from the county engineer, county traffic engineer, about allowing a shorter driveway.
Is our applicant here today?
Yes.
You like to speak on that? State your name.
Mark Johnson. Address, our business address is 3156 Pelham Parkway, Suite 4, Pelham, Alabama 35124. The request, I don't know if you can see the particular site plans. The original setback on this street is actually 25 feet from the back of curb. And that's what's giving us our problem on these particular house plans. We have a certain number of house plans that have been designed for this neighborhood, and these are our shortest house plans that we have. And with the setback that's there, we can't get these houses on the lot. The setback that's there, either the house plan itself or the patio is over the property line with how short these lots are. So that's why we're asking for the variance. We're asking, now we have 2-car garages on every one of these houses. Not a single-car garage and no garage. It's a 2-car garage on every one of these.
You understand Michael's concern about if you were parked in front, that your car is going to be hanging out into the street?
I do. Of course, I can't dictate what kind of car somebody's going to drive, but if we're roughly 16 feet from the back of the curb.
Would you deed restrict them that they cannot park in their driveway? They must park in the garage?
I don't know what the covenants say. I mean,
put a covenant on it.
I imagine we could amend our documents maybe to say that. No, I don't.
Because we see this a good bit, that a car, a 15-foot, you're not going to park a car in 15 feet. So it would be hanging out in the street. And do you have sidewalks in this development?
I don't believe we have sidewalks on this neighborhood.
If you had a sidewalk, then it'd be cutting in through the sidewalk too. But, it looks like 385, that plan.
That one's
on
not.
that lot, you got enough room for 385.
Yes.
the others, the way they're drawn, it looks like, all those would be hanging in.
Now, it's possible that we could go back, a couple more feet, that we could go back on 386. 389, actually, I don't think is a problem for us. 392, 385, 405, and 411 are the ones that are like right in the middle of those cul-de-sacs that are very short. And it's possible that we could put the house back maybe a couple more feet, which would put us at 18, 19 feet off the curb, but I don't think we can get 25 feet.
Okay, you got a 5-foot easement, 18 foot. How big's your patios?
They're roughly, I can change that as well, but they're roughly 10 feet out from the back of the house.
Are they covered?
No.
So you could,
Uncovered patios could be within the rear set.
Right.
yeah, so I mean, looked like you could back up the house. Looked like you could back it up. What's the rear setback?
In R7, it's
10
building
feet.
to building. I want to say that it's 20 feet back to back, if that makes any sense.
It's a 10 foot on the back.
Or 10 foot? Well, these, like on 405, I'm looking at, 18 feet, 18.7 to the back of the house, 5-foot easement, so you could back it up. 13 feet. Myself, I would rather back the houses up, and give the rear setback variance to give you more room in the front. I don't know what you think about that.
We've got, again, precedent in this particular community for those sorts of variances between side and side, side and back, and back to back variances as well. Because again, these lots are tight, and we've, again, just to accommodate a lot of those requests, that's what they've been. And, I mean, certainly if a variance is needed along the rear, because again, it's 20 feet back to back. It's not necessarily 10 feet off the property line. So you've got a little wiggle room within that.
10 feet from.
It would be from
The
the back of
block
this structure
behind
to the
it.
back of the structure next to it, or on the other side, which I believe that end is still undeveloped, if I'm not mistaken.
I can't hear you.
That one came back.
Why?
Yeah, so that portion, if they're on the western side of the road,
Depends on
then
how
the
much.
adjacent track, I don't believe is developed at this point. I think they still need a subdivision case. But again, it's just measurement from structure to structure. They just have to demonstrate that they can meet that setback.
Like 411, well, that says 18 feet. No, that's to the
And
back.
again, there may be some,
18.
building code may put like a 5-foot
It's the same thing there.
setback from the property line. I'd have to check with our plans examiner just to verify that. But,
Yeah, for fire.
which I believe, yeah.
Is that patio?
Push it back to.
Patio can do that, covered patio.
Over the property line.
That
Or a porch.
has to be open.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, if we push the house back on these in the cul-de-sacs to 25 feet, then our patios are actually over the property line. And you're giving them,
411's 18.
you're 8 feet, 8.7 feet from the patio to the property line.
Just, is there another sort of housing design that you guys offer where there's like a recessed
These,
garage?
no, these are already, these are the smallest, shortest plans that we have. So, I mean, if we could maybe do some kind, I could change the size of the patios, make them a little wider, a little shorter, but, I mean, if we could get something, most of the vehicles, like a large truck is probably gonna be 19 to 20 feet deep. So if somebody has a Tundra or an F-150, they're gonna be about 19 to 20 feet. So maybe we don't do the 25, if we did maybe a 20-foot off the front, if possible. And then we could shorten some things up on the patios, possibly.
Do we have anybody here objecting to this?
I would move to approve this, the stipulation that the driveway parking area extends a minimum of 20 feet from the back of the curb.
Look at lot 385. That one looks like it will make the setbacks since it's coming in here. And if you back that house up anymore, he's probably going to end up with a side setback.
That's right. It can't go back anymore.
If we could make an exception to 385 and, on the 20-foot setback, the 15.
Well, actually, I think we're the 15 feet on 385. If I'm not mistaken, this end is where your driveway is, correct?
Yeah,
Drive,
that's
that's a
correct.
little porch.
So your driveway is already is 32.01
On the right side.
Right.
on the right side, and then on the left side, I'm sure you'd have the 25 feet on that one.
Yeah, that's-
It's just the corner of the house, which again, there's no objection to that.
Yeah, but if we made it a 20-foot setback, it's gonna push it back to be then we got a side rear setback problem.
What I'm saying, I think you probably already have the 20 feet there on that particular request.
We might even just be able to exclude that lot.
Well, he needs
Well,
the,
we're still gonna need the front setback for that corner.
yeah, he's gonna need the
Yeah.
15-foot setback.
He's gonna need that 15-foot setback for just for that corner, because
Correct.
that's also where the road bulbs out.
Correct.
But I think that where the driveway is located on that
Yeah,
one,
the driveway's
I think
fine.
he's fine now.
Yeah, that's what I
Right.
mean, we need to take that lot out of the 20-foot setback.
I will amend my motion to exclude lot 385.
But it does need to have the 15-foot
Yes.
on that one.
So basically, the motion would need to be stated that we approve the request to be the 20 feet, but we're gonna exclude that particular lot from that driveway requirement. Okay.
We're approving the 15-foot setback.
Right, but
So-
we're excluding that from the driveway requirement. That was stipulated, that's in the stipulations. We can work that.
Have a motion and seconds, all in favor? That work for you?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, our next case will be A 21-0017. Arlene Whitting, use variance to allow a mobile home to be placed in R2 zoning in lieu of the required A1 agriculture or R6 single family. And to allow said mobile home to be a minimum of 5 feet from the side property lines in lieu of the minimum of 9 feet. Currently, this property is zoned R2. It's located at 708 Carter Avenue, Bessemer, approximately 0.7 acres in the Eastern Valley area. Michael?
Yes, sir. In this particular community, this is kind of on the backside of Raymond and the backside of all those houses that have a lot of frontage on Eastern Valley Road right in there. In this particular section of the community, though, there is a precedent that's been set by the board in the past for allowing mobile homes, manufactured homes. And in fact, this particular property is sort of even at the edge of the community, and adjacent to the north is a lot where a mobile home was approved by variance of just within the past 5 or 6 years. And in fact, on that particular lot, that they had a mobile home there before that was approved by the board. Then when that mobile home went away, the board had to re-up the or give another approval for an additional or a new mobile home on the site. With regards to the setback, there's the way that we've positioned, or the lot is positioned itself. The property owner actually owns both of those lots, lots 5 and lot 6, the lot to the south. Okay, and typically it would be customary to just resurvey them all into one lot. I think that just to expedite things, we filed this case. I think in the future that the property owner is going to work on resurveying that all into one lot at some point in time. And again, we could make the mobile home fit on the property, but it's just with regards to that lot line is why they've requested the setback variance. But looking with the dimensions of that particular lot, because there is some extra square footage from a vacated road, I think that they could probably fit the mobile home on the lot and meet the setbacks on the sides, but just due to some topographical challenges on the property, it would be easier to move it just a little bit closer to that southern line. There'd be a lot less earthwork and everything else that would be involved. So staff has recommended approving the request, again, given the precedence for mobile homes in this particular community and, again, on the adjacent property. And then also just with that modification that we grant the setback on that along the southern property line and not the northern property line. And that will keep the distance there between the properties and the two mobile homes, or the property lines and the two mobile homes, and just maintain that particular setback.
You have it.
Yes, ma'am.
The recommendation is for 9 feet, though, and they only have the 5, but that doesn't include the
Right,
vacated.
it's the 9 on the north property line, because that is the setback in R2, and so we basically just be withholding that or maintaining the R2 setback on that northern property line and varying the one on the south. And again, just to give some wiggle room to work with the topography of the property.
All right, I guess here today. Do you have anything you want to add? Just be sure to state your name and address.
Arlene Whitted, 50 Pepper Tree Apartment. I live in Bessemer, 35020.
Okay, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I do. Are we crossing this line right here?
No, ma'am. I've got you where you're not crossing that line.
Oh, okay then. Okay. So I guess that's it. I'm sorry.
Okay, do we have any opposition to this case? Seeing none, any questions from the board?
I move to go with the approval of the staff recommendation, setbacks on the property.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Variance should be granted.
Thank you.
Okay, next will be case A 21-0018, Barronwood Properties, LLC, David Lawson, a variance from the terms of the zoning regulation to allow 190 square foot parking area per space. Parking space is 9 foot wide, or allow 1.8 parking spaces per unit in lieu of the required 2. This is for R4 multifamily zoning. It's 32.51 acres in Hoover, 2328 Highway 150, Birmingham. Is the applicant here today? Michael, you want to present this, please?
Oh, yes, sir. Very quickly, there is a typo in that. It should be 180 square feet. But that's covered just due to the fact that we're talking about the stalls themselves, and the stall requirements are the county enforces is 10 by 20. And so, again, that's just a mathematical effort on our behalf. So, anyway, R4 property is completely surrounded by the city of Hoover. And they are looking to develop a multifamily development there. And, again, talking with the county traffic engineer, talking with the county engineer regarding this particular request, it's twofold. One request was to either A, modify the number of parking spaces, or B, modify the space allocated for the parking spaces themselves. Because, again, in looking at comparison, and the development team has put together a good comparison chart just on what the county requires versus some other jurisdictions. one within the metropolitan area, and then two just looking at like across the south. And what we see is that the county is sort of above and beyond with regards to things like, again, the number of parking spaces, and then two, the size of the parking spaces themselves. In fact, given the information that they provided in here, I'll find this chart for you. The 9-foot parking spaces is something that's pretty well universal everywhere else except for Gardendale. And again, the reason why the county has these parking requirements is, again, to accommodate your larger vehicles. We have a large rural area. You know, we've got people that are in SUVs. We've got people in dualies. And so, you know, we've got this wide plan for that, which, you know, again, a lot of people appreciate when they go to the shopping mall and they don't have to be a NASCAR driver to get out of their car. However, you know, I don't know that that's something that should be appropriate or uniformly applied in every single situation. I mean, and one could make the argument that at apartment complexes, you're more likely to have compact cars, and you're not likely to really have a dually while you're living at the apartment complex. Not to say that it doesn't happen. It's just not going to be a typical apartment dweller. With regards to the number of spaces, the county feels confident and wants to maintain the number of spaces. And the reason for that is, again, you got a lot more people working from home. You want to accommodate people, their visitors, without interfering with fire lanes, with traffic lanes, with flow of traffic, with parking on places where there's raw earth that could be torn up and disturbed and causing erosion problems. So again, it's the county's preference to modify or vary the parking space requirement, especially considering that the neighboring municipality that's all the way around it has the 9 feet. So there wouldn't be anything that wouldn't be consistent with the surrounding properties themselves. And the development team is here if you've got any questions for them.
You did a good job. You want to add to what he said?
Well, we did bring some additional books that you got if you need it. The Gardendale is actually an error by my intern. And
If
so,
you would, just be sure to state your name.
Yes, sir. Thornton Ratliff, 2914 Linden Avenue, Homewood 35209. Can I approach?
That's fine.
And so, when we were working with staff, they effectively recommended kind of an option A, option B approach. With either the 9-foot spatial variance or the total number of units. We're perfectly comfortable developing this community under either scenario. And so we're certainly happy to answer any question. There's several communities that we've developed in the immediate area, all of which have 9-foot parking spaces. And to Michael's point, that's kind of the consistent precedent throughout the surrounding communities.
Is there any opposition to this case? Seeing none,
I move to go with the staff recommendation for the 9-foot width.
Wonderful. And then 180 square feet will get
got a
cleaned up.
second? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just probably 9 also. I think that's what he said.
Out of curiosity.
I was just curious.
Yep, 9 feet.
Okay.
It's 9 feet.
Uniform exception.
Right,
So I
right.
couldn't park my dually.
Okay,
I
next,
do
we,
have one.
case number A 21-0019, Sonia Horn, requesting a variance for the terms of the zoning regulation to allow an accessory structure to be located on property of record, Lot 1 of Horn subdivision, prior to the first establishing a residence. Agriculture zoning, the address is 8585 Great House Loop Road, Dora, in the corner area. Is the applicant here today? Michael, you want to present this case?
Yes, sir. We've had several of these requests, particularly within the past year, that come before the board, where we have situations where you've got these large agricultural lots, And the only stumbling block to being able to permit an accessory structure is the fact that it belongs in now what's a recorded subdivision. Very briefly, I'll touch on the history of this. It's the spirit of intent and the intent of the ordinance to address situations where we have these recorded subdivisions in the former minimum lot size requirement of 15,000 square feet that was allowed in A1. We have several subdivisions in the Mount Olive area, for instance, that look like regular conventional subdivisions, smaller lots, 15,000, 20,000 square feet, that are zoned A1. Well, currently the A1 standard is an acre, and that was changed in 2005. And then furthermore, these regulations were put in place prior to the county properly enforcing their subdivision regulations. And so back when these regulations were formed, these people could have just split off this property by deed, and thus we could have permitted it. In taking a look at all the surrounding properties, only the subject property itself and the adjacent subject property to the left are the only ones that belong into a recorded subdivision. Thus, I could permit an accessory structure in absence of a residence on any of the adjacent properties other than those two that belong to the same subdivision that was recorded. And so again, the regulation itself in this instance is something that, again, we're looking to change just so we can easily permit these things on these larger lots. And so with that being said, and with the board's precedent, staff recommended approval for this particular case.
Do you have anything you want
I can tell you what I got going on. My name's Tim Horn. I'm at 8571 Great House Loop Road, Dora, 35062. What we got going on, we subdivided this because we sold the property adjacent to it. And it was right at the COVID. At April, we sold of 2020. And we had planned to build a house on the 14 acres that we had subdivided. And with the COVID happening and my wife getting let go from her job and stuff, she's working from home now. And my son, we put him in an apartment down here at UAB while we was going to build the house. Well, lumber and everything just went crazy. So we decided to wait. And we was going to leave him there a year. We figured we'd build a house in a year or so. He's coming back home now. So I had the opportunity to buy a shed. It's a temporary shed. I mean, it's a portable building. It's nice, don't get me wrong, but it's a portable building. And the furniture we bought to furnish his apartment's what we're going to put in our house. So it needs to be in a heat and a cool climate. So what we're wanting to do is just get temporary, and I repeat, temporary power for this building. And when we build our house, we'll be moving this building away from anybody's sight. It's not ugly, but it's still, I can understand other people's having an issue with a portable building on the property, but we'll be moving this as soon as and I've already got my house plans approved. I'm probably going to pull my permit this week for my house. I got to get everything in line with that, but that's where we stand right now. I got my plans back this week, and so we're just wanting temporary power to be able to keep our furniture. My son's got computers, photography equipment. Like I said, he's in UAB, and we're just wanting to put all of our furniture in a heat and cool climate till we can get this house built. But we've been fighting with the COVID, so that's the only thing I wanted to try to get granted on just temporary, not permanent, temporary power. Thank you.
questions? Do you have any opposition?
My name's Tammy Yarbrough. I live at 8580 Great House Lake Road. I live across the street from all of this, and I don't know, in the last month there's been so much moving in that there's the temporary structure he was speaking about, another storage shed, and several travel trailers. So, I mean, I wanted to know if that's all going to be permanent. Yes, I do. First one is my house across the street. The other ones are the structures across the street. Sorry, I'm not that good of a photographer.
applicant?
Can I approach it and see?
Yes, just address us though, not, well, you,
See the picture.
oh, yeah,
If
okay.
I can, I don't know what she's even talking about.
Here, I'll go grab it.
All I have is a green shed that we're trying to get power to. We don't have a power trailer. This camper's on another piece of property. This is my father-in-law's.
And y'all are living in it?
This is my brother-in-law's camper at my father-in-law's house. This is not on that property.
And he's living in it?
We're not in court. This is my motor home. My wife's in Virginia in it right now. And that picture is on my father-in-law's property. The only picture on here that is on that property, that we're talking about getting temporary power is this green building that she's got half of a picture of.
Green building and the gray shed?
This gray shed, the property line's right behind this gray shed.
Is the gray shed on you?
Yes, sir. It's got furniture in it, the stuff, this junk stuff, and this is gonna have the livable furniture. This is campers on my father-in-law, this motorhome is mine, and my wife is in Virginia right now. She works from home, and she's traveling across the country with the Boy Scouts. Listen, I'll give you a little more. I know we're not in court, but there's a little turmoil with my father-in-law and my aunt, and she's probably trying to confuse this with something that I have no idea what this is about. It's just about the green shed getting temporary power for it. The motorhome is mine, the camper is his son's, and it is on his 10 acres. It don't have nothing to do with me. So,
Not at all.
So-
There was a trailer that they had sitting there for 2 years that was unpermitted.
Okay.
this is my father-in-law. He's the neighbor, so he can speak.
You are correct that
Like, can they come up with?
right now, we're just, the main issue is whether to give a variance for an accessory building.
Exactly.
Green building.
I was under the impression they would be living in it.
Now,
They've been living in
Excuse me, can you come
camper.
up to the podium and speak, please, so we can record this properly? Thank
They've
you.
been living in the camper that was shown on the thing, so I was under the impression that they would actually be moving in and living in the shed that had been moved in.
we'll ask that. Sir, are you planning on living in this camper, in this shed, or just storing furniture in it?
Furniture and computers only.
You're not gonna set up
Sir,
a
yeah,
house there?
if you could, again, step.
Sir, you're not planning on living there?
No, sir, there's no possible way. It has no plumbing, has no water. It's just for storage. I mean, hey, all I'm asking for is temporary power. They can come pull it if they find me living in it, because it's not going to happen. I mean, we don't even live in a motorhome. I live in his basement while we're building a house. I mean, the motorhome is, it's not, I don't have any way to live in it. We don't have a 30-amp breaker for that anyway. It's not even plugged up. It's used to travel. So,
They've had a motorhome about a month. They've been living in the basement over a year.
Okay, if
Sir,
you
sir,
would come and address the board at the podium and give your name and address where they can put it in the record.
I don't know where you, excuse me. I'm Robert Preston.
Address, please.
Sorry,
Address.
8571 Great House Loop Road. All of this was mine, and I gave my daughter what they got. It was 17 acres, I believe. They built a house. They sold a house here recently. They moved in my basement. All this was COVID's come up. The son went to UAB apartments. Got pretty expensive, so they had to actually bring him back home, and all this stuff is coming back home. Where she got the idea of they're living in a camper, I have no idea, or a motor home. They're sitting right outside my basement now, but there ain't nobody living in it. She's in Virginia right now, or North Carolina, somewhere up there. But they've been living in the basement over a year, So I don't have no idea. It's a long family problem.
All we want-
Over inheritance is what it is. So, and I don't know how, we haven't spoke since my mother died. So I don't know how you, change anything. I mean, she just got her ideas. If you got any problem with mine, I'd be glad you to come see my basement or anything, you know.
We'll appreciate it. Like I said,
Okay.
we're just looking at the assessor's. Okay, any other opposition? Any more questions from the board?
Move that we accept the staff recommendation for approval.
We've got a motion and a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
We approve.
Approved.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm hard of hearing. Thank you.
His property, it's not on the property that we're doing the variance on.
Okay, next is A 21-0021, Scott and Vicky Holden, applicant John Bly III, a variance for the terms of the zoning regulation to construct a convenience store 42 feet from the center line of Old Gout Road in lieu of the 52 feet from the center line, previous approved by variance. Zoning district C1 commercial, 3430 Morgan Road, Bessemer, in the South Shades Crest area. Is the applicant here today? Michael, you want to go ahead and present the case?
Yes, sir. In fact, I guess you'd be the only one who may remember approving the recent variance on this one. There used to be a gas station on this property. It was an old non-conforming gas station that was built in the 40s. That was in operation for some time. Very recently, the county has gone through and acquired a lot of additional right-of-way for the Morgan Road expansion in this area. And so in doing so, that particular gas station was absolved within the right-of-way. And this is an effort to buy back. Now, due to the amount of right-of-way that has been acquired, it sort of limits the room on the property to place the new gas station, especially with accommodating things like your driving aisles where your gas pumps are going to be, as well as parking. And so what that's happened here is it's pushed the building more towards the rear. And again, this came before the board, I believe it was last year or year before, in order to obtain a variance from the center line of the road. And again, the variance is from the center line just due to the fact that the road doesn't have 40 feet of right-of-way. It's an old road, and it only serves a few adjacent properties further to the north. All those are zoned agricultural, with the exception of the property to the north of this one that is zoned CN, which is like a neighborhood commercial zoning, which one would anticipate with being a commercial property that you'd want to have the frontage and access off of Morgan Road. With that being said, and if you look at the site plan as well, I know it's a lot of concern primarily where it has to do with parking. And in this instance, you can see where they've got a driveway that spans the entirety of the rear of the building. And that driveway that's coming off of Old Grap Road there is just basically to provide parking for employees, and as well as there's a basement there where they have an office for the proposed C-store. And so, again, seeing that there's not really you have a topographical hardship in this particular instance as well, because the property sort of sits at a bluff, and I'm sure Ms. Thigpen can second that one, as well as the hardship that was created by the additional right-of-way that had been required from Morgan Road. And seeing as there's not really any sort of traffic conflicts that are anticipated, staff has recommended approval of this one as well.
Do you have any opposition?
I can't figure out how they're doing it, but that's okay. I mean, I know where this one sits. Is it not still in operation? I mean, it sits right on Morgan Road.
Right, no. That one's going away, and this is a
Yeah, I
new,
know, but it's still in operation right now, isn't it?
I think so.
I think so. It's right there on the corner.
Right.
The new Publix is right across the street.
Right.
So, I don't have any problem.
Again, with the applicant not here, you're free to carry the case over if you've got any questions or anything for him.
I move to approve.
I second.
Motion and second, all in favor, aye. case would be A21-0022, Bruno Capital Management Corporation, Kelly Watson, the applicant, to allow a guest house at E2 Estate, 2 acres at 3525 Misty Lane, Birmingham, Alabama, Vestavia. The applicant here today?
Yes.
Michael, will present this.
Yes, sir. Again, guest houses are allowed only by appeal to the Board of Zoning Adjustment. And whenever we bring these cases to you, we look at things like the overall density or impact that it could have, particularly on adjacent properties. In this particular instance, these folks are looking to construct a house and garage, and they're going to have this landscaped courtyard in between the house and where the proposed guest house is going to be. And taking a look at the area, this is off of Rocky Ridge, you have sort of a mixed pattern of densities in this particular area. You can see, like, adjacent to the east and to the south, you've got a cul-de-sac that has some garden homes on it. And then, too, you have a lot of remnants of these old estate houses that used to front either Rocky Ridge or these old secondary roads. This particular portion of the county, as you get closer to Altadena, it's very common to have these guest houses. In fact, they were constructed in many instances. They were constructed prior to zoning or prior to having some sort of board or needing some sort of board approval. Given the space of the property, given the prevalence of this in this area, and we don't really see or anticipate any sort of detrimental effect, staff has recommended approval on this one. I would also point out as well that the property could be subdivided to accommodate 2 houses because it is of adequate size. So, again, in all things considered, that's why staff has made the recommendation to approve this one.
Applicant, you want to follow up on anything?
Yes. Kelly Watson, 2405 First Avenue South, Suite 200, Birmingham, 35233. So I'm the contractor on this house, and it's, as it was shown here, it's designed with a house, courtyard, detached garage, and the guest house. The guest house is purely for guests that come in, family members, primarily a son. It is not there intended to be an Airbnb or anything like that. Any other questions on that?
Do we have any opposition to this?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
I just wish we had
Thank
the
you.
house plan so we could,
Yeah.
as 2 realtors and a builder, I wish I could see the house plans because it looks gorgeous.
Okay, I believe that's all our cases for today. We have a motion, we approve the minutes, so can I get a motion to adjourn?
You guys, I did want to introduce you all to Willie Brown. He's our new principal planner here on staff. He started with us last week, so wanted to introduce him. And then also Connie, that's with the planning tech with us, has just recently been promoted to planner. So she's going to be adopting some more stuff to deal with us as far as the meeting and everything else goes in the future as well. So just want to make you all aware. It's good to see you guys.
Thank you. Wasn't as fast as I thought.